Okay, here's section 1.5, homework solutions / discussion. Okay, so we're talking about sampling and collecting data, and how can we collect data well, and how can we collect it poorly. So let's take a look at 6. The village of Oaklawn wishes to conduct a study regarding income level of households within the village. The village manager selects 10 homes in the southwest corner of the village and sends an interview to collect them. They call this sampling bias because it's how you're sampling is bad, but let's be more specific. This is called a convenience bias because we're sampling conveniently the southwest corner. Maybe the southwest corner is where all the smaller houses are. Okay, so maybe that's where the lower income people are. Maybe it's where the bigger houses are, so only the wealthier people will live there. There's lots of different reasons why this is a bad idea. So convenience sample is bad in this. 7, an anti-gun wants to estimate the percentage of people who favor stricter gun control laws. This is always a hot topic, and how you word it is amazing. You tend to see this come up whenever there are mass shootings, and so we tag that onto it. I'm not making light of that whatsoever, but you do see that. Gets people fired up both ways. He conducts a nationwide survey of 1,203 randomly selected adults 18 years and older. The interviewer asks the response, do you favor harsher penalties for people who sell guns illegally? Okay. Well, we're just trying to estimate the percentage who favor stricter gun laws. Well, when you start saying people selling guns illegally, absolutely, that's ridiculous. I want stricter gun laws because I don't want that to happen. But now you're getting people that are, to be fired up over that statement, selling guns illegally, and that's going to bias people as to how they respond to whether they think we should have stricter gun laws or not. So it's called response bias. 8. Let's see. We have a list of registered students. We got a simple random sample of 150. One survey is, how much sleep do you get? How much sleep do you get? We call that response bias because oftentimes, if you're asking me a question about something I do myself, I'm more likely to round it or to edge to the numbers that seem like that you might want to hear from me, right? I don't really want you to know that I only slept 4 hours last night because I stayed up watching YouTube videos. So I slept about 6 hours last night or thereabouts. So people are gonna change what they say when they're self-reporting. Okay, and that's what we call a response bias. Number 9, we mail a questionnaire to 1023 randomly selected households and asked if a foreign language is a primary language. And of the 1,203 households, only 12 responded. Right? So only 12 responded. I have no information about the other 1,011 households. Okay, so this is called non-response bias because maybe those 1,011 households that didn't respond or differ from the 12 that did. Sorry about that. And sorry for that pause. I realized I needed to answer that. So anyhow, non-response is when people are choosing not to be in the sample. If I choose a random sample, that should be representative of the population, like my spoonful of chili. But if people are choosing not to be in it, maybe they differ than the rest. Okay, so we're going to keep rolling down and say 10 is non-response. Same deal. 11. Cosmopolitan surveyed 5,000 Australian women. 15.4 found 42% considered themselves obese. Okay, or overweight. We talked about that. Could be interviewer error, how they're asked the question. Could be self-reporting. A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm overweight, I'm obese," and they're like 5 pounds overweight or some crazy thing like that, right? So that would be what we call sampling bias or response bias. If you use either one, I'm good with that. Okay. And number 12, a health teacher wants to do research on the weight of college students. She obtains the weights for all of her students in her 9 a.m. class by looking at their driver's license. Is her class representative of the population? No way, right? First of all, it's a health class because she's a health teacher. It's 9 a.m. People who take health classes, people who take 9 a.m. classes are going to be different than the rest of the population. For good or for bad, right? It's not really necessarily one or the other, but so the classes, this is a convenience sample, okay? So in this case, we say the sampling bias would be convenience for this one. Convenience bias and a response bias for the one right above it. All right, keep rolling down here. How about this one? I can just look at the question here. Do you believe a marriage can survive when the husband destroys the trust that must exist? Yeah, no. Poorly worded question. Worded question like that. Can you say, hey, when trust is broken in a marriage, is it possible for husband or wife to say, hey, we're going to work through this? Okay. You can ask it better than like that to get a good answer. So yeah, so we will say that. That's called response bias when it's poorly worded. Textbook publisher wants to determine the percentage of college professors that require or recommend that their students purchase textbooks, etc. They send out surveys to a random sample of 320 faculty members who have registered with this website. First of all, that's only a certain cross-section of faculty members, right? Only certain ones are going to register to a website. And they've also agreed to receive solicitations. That's another smaller group. I always say, don't send me stuff. I don't need my inbox filled up with things. And 80% of college professors of those require or recommend their students to purchase some sort of textbook package. So this is, again, not representative. Okay, it's convenience. Example. Okay. 15. Illicit drug use among teenagers in Baltimore. You obtain a sample of 12 schools and you sample all the sophomore students in the schools. It's administered by teachers. Of course, you're going to have response bias because if students are answering questions and teachers are giving the survey, they're going to lie about it. If they think there's any possibility of being caught and disciplined or whatever. 16, police department. Police chief obtains a cluster sample of 15 census tracts within his jurisdiction, samples all households in the selected tracts. Uniformed police officers go door to door to conduct a survey about, what do you think about the police department? Right? That's the silliest thing in the world, isn't it? It's like a teacher going and asking my students' parents, hey, what do you think about teachers? Kind of thing. So response bias, you're affecting what the response is going to be. And we got to be careful about this. You have to know, how is data collected? If data is collected poorly, your results will be invalid. And you would be surprised how often we read things in the news, on social media, whatever, where the data is incredibly poorly collected, but yet we make all sorts of claims about it. Or they're anecdotal. They're like, hey, this has been my experience, therefore this is what it is like for everybody. Okay? Not true. Not true. Please don't do that. Okay, 20. Consider the following questions. Do you believe the government should or should not be allowed to prohibit individuals from expressing their religious beliefs at their place of employment? Do you believe the government should or should not be allowed to prohibit teachers from expressing their religious beliefs? What do you think? Do you think the order in which the questions are asked will affect the survey results? Okay. A. Do you believe the government should or should not be allowed to prohibit individuals from expressing their religious beliefs at their place of employment? B. Do you believe that the government should or should not be allowed to prohibit teachers from expressing their religious beliefs, right? This one is individuals. This one is teachers. Are you going to get different results just from these statements? Well, the answer is yes. This one we're saying now is teachers. This one's individuals. And they're saying if you're going to ask this question of people and you're going to ask both the questions, is the order that you ask them going to give you different results? Well, teachers are different than individuals in a place of employment. Teachers are in a position of, especially with, in any group, you're in a position of authority over your students. And your students don't have a choice but to be there and listen to you and hear you. And you have there's a specific trust maybe that students have with their teachers, that the teachers are going to only give them the best information and what's best for them. And so we say, okay, teachers, you can't give your religious beliefs. You shouldn't be talking about politics in class. You shouldn't be talking about a lot of these different things in class because the information you're giving them is certainly biased because it's coming through you. Now, so that's going to make people say, no, no, no. Okay, the answer to this. And once I say no to this and I read this, individuals, oh yeah, no, same. Individuals shouldn't be tearing their religious beliefs. So if I say this question first, I am more likely to say no to this. But if you talk about individuals first, okay, yeah, individuals can share. Because you don't have to talk to people. People don't have to listen to you or whatnot. Okay, so I think that's okay to do. But, teachers, no. So you can see how it's going to be different when you ask these two questions in a survey. Okay. So the question is, how do you alleviate response bias like this? Wow, that's a tough one. You're going to have to really maybe clarify ahead of time that you're talking about different groups of people and kind of lay the groundwork for, okay, here's the types of questions you're going to be asked. Or you separate these, from each other. Okay. The word prohibit is very strong, right? Prohibit, you can't do it, no way. That's a very strong word. And that's going to make people respond, no, the government can't prohibit me from talking, so yes, they can share their beliefs or whatever. So that's going to elicit anything that's going to elicit any type of emotion is going to give you bad data. And man, that's all over the place. I think I even mentioned just recently that how we fill out a survey for the school district I work for, and it was poorly worded. It was terrible. The questions were asked to elicit a particular response, and that's what it got. All right, 23. Random digit dialing is actually pretty good. Than it used to. What people might think. The problem is now not everybody has. Well, most people don't have landlines, so it's not as good as it maybe used to be. So people if you're using landlines, the people that aren't going to be included in your samples are people that don't have landlines, right? People that don't have phones. They're different than the people that do. Lots of different reasons. Okay. Do not call registry. If your number's on the registry, commercial telemarketers can't call you. So now, what type of people get on the do not call registry? People like me that say, don't bother me, I don't want to talk to you. And so people like me are not going to be in any kind of a sample or survey, right, that's offered. So, and people like me might be different. Well, we are different than everybody else, right? People that tend to do that. You got to take time to do it, for one thing. All right, and 27, exit polling. Oh, this is a big, actually it's right here. Sorry, I don't do too much. During every election, pollsters conduct exit polls to determine which candidate people voted for. So they actually randomly ask random people, who'd you vote for? And they try to get a representative group of people, and then they can find out from these 1,000 people what percent voted for what candidate, and then they try to make a general statement about the population. Okay, so in the 2004, pollsters incorrectly predicted John Kerry. We talked about this with Dewey, right, for president, when Truman was actually elected, but this is something similar. How could this error have happened? Pollsters cited interviewer error due to the fact that many of the interviewers were young, and only young voters agreed to be interviewed, and when young voters tended to favor Kerry. Plus, interviewers tend to make more data entry mistakes. Okay. In addition, the method of selecting individuals led to selecting a higher proportion of female voters, when Kerry was favored by females. Okay. In some precincts, interviewers also denied access to voters. Okay, so people that you want to choose from aren't allowed. I can't talk to them, so who did they support? I don't know. Maybe those people all supported a certain candidate. So this was awful all the way around, it looks like. Okay. So there's some bad things going on, right? So we've got to be careful on how we collect data.